Hello, friends. How is everything going? My name is Fabricio Sanchez. This is Fabricio Office Hours, and today I would like to share something that is really dear to me, to my heart, and to my family, to be honest, which is about moving to a new country, leaving behind everything that you knew and you grew up with, family, friends, work, a lifestyle, and arriving to a new country. In our case, it was the U.S. and how this has been working out for us. So it has been a tremendous experience thus far. A lot of what we planned when we first accepted the offer to come up here, we thank God we were able to accomplish. Some of them we weren't expecting, some of them we were planning, and some of them just happened, right? And that's how life goes. But today I would like to share some of the details about the movement itself, what happened, why we decided to move, and when we decided, which aspects we took in consideration to get ourselves ready for the challenge. Because I've been talking with a lot of people, I've been mentoring people, and most of them, they ask me, hey, Fabricio, what do I need to do to get prepared to work in the United States? I know that the market there is different, is more competitive, is more mature. So I would love to hear your thoughts and your experience about what you personally did to be able to get there. And so today's video is all about it. And I would like to start sharing a little bit of the context why we decided to move, because I think that's critical, right? That's important because you have to have the right motivation. And it works out differently for each one of us, right? So for me, it was more of a mix between personal desires and professional aspects that I wanted to accomplish. But for somebody else, it might be just, wanting to have a different experience in life. For some, it might be a definitive thing. For others, it might be a temporary thing. So motivations and drivers they differ to each one of us, and that's the beauty of life, right? Each one of us, we have different perspectives about a given situation. But in my case, it was a mix of wanting to change my lifestyle and really get the international experience that I always thought would be extremely important, combined with some personal aspects that were happening in my life at the time. So I had my own company opened. I was working like 16, 17 hours a day. And one day I ended up cramping, literally cramping, due to a burnout crisis that I had. And at that day, I decided that I didn't want that anymore, and I wanted to come back to a very steady job and have my life going. I could work a lot in this new steady job, but at least it wouldn't be like 17, 16 hours a day, and I would still be able to have a very nice life and be productive and generate impact to the company I was working for. So I decided that I was going to be there at that moment. And then also it was combined with some personal achievements and desires that myself and my wife we had at the time. And so we decided that was going to be our turning point. And a couple of months after the fact that I just mentioned, I was invited to come back. Danilo Bordini, which ended up becoming a friend afterwards, but he invited me to come back to Microsoft. It was back in 2015, I'm sorry. And I remember December 2015, I joined Microsoft Brazil for the second time. And then I decided that I would get myself ready, right? While I was working and delivering to my company in Brazil, I decided that I wanted to get ready for my next opportunity, my next chapter that would happen 2, 3, 4 years after, hopefully. And then I decided to prepare. I decided to work in a lot of different aspects of my profile, career, and everything. I did talk a lot with my mentors, and here's a first highlight that I would like to make. If you don't have it already, you should be looking for a mentor, a person that you, more than one, maybe eventually more than one. In my case, I have at least two that I talk very, very frequently about life, about career, and about everything. I feel comfortable with, and I trust on their judgment and their assessment about the situations and about everything that I bring to them. And so I talked a lot with these people, and I did go into a very deep self-assessment about my profile, things that I needed to work hard to improve, how to expand my fortresses, how to make my weaknesses go away. So I did go through this very profound and deep analysis about myself, both professionally and personally, because soft skills also matter a lot. And I put in a plan. So I would like to share some of the aspects that in myself I had to work out at the time. Again, back in 2015, I had done a lot in my career already. But nobody's perfect, right? And you always have room to improve certain aspects of your life, and both professionally and in your personal life. And then I'm going to share something that I did that worked out for me. It could be different for you, but I'm pretty sure that some of these aspects might be touching you somehow. And how it ended up working for me. So the first one I just mentioned is a self-assessment about yourself, about your strength, about your weaknesses, about things that you really do well, but sometimes you don't communicate. So it might be the result of that self-assessment, and that, I used a lot my mentors to help me out with that. So the results, the outcomes of those assessments, they might be different, for you. But in my case, I did notice that I thought I initially, was talking a good English. But, when I decided to get into conversations with my peers outside of Brazil, and I decided to do some shadowing sessions to understand the dynamics of the meetings outside of Brazil, in the US specifically, I noticed that English was something that I needed to catch up a lot, right? At the time I was having regular English classes, because even working from Brazil, if you work for a multinational company, it is important for you to speak English, right? And so I was having my classes, but I was in a point that I was far away from being fluent. And so that turned on a light in my head and said, "Hey, Fabrizio, you gotta be something, because if you want to postulate to something really serious in the US, you have to speak a good English, right? Fluently, at least." And so I decided to put in a lot of efforts. I did a lot of different things. On top of the classes that I was having, I intensified those classes. So rather than having classes twice a week, I decided to have classes every single day, at least an hour a day. I stopped watching movies with subtitles in Portuguese, so I could immerse myself into both reading and both listening about everything that was being said in a given series I was watching or a movie. That helped me a lot. Even when I was taking time to play some game or something like that, it was everything in English. So that helped me a lot too. I started to reading much more in English than I used to. And one thing that I did that was really helpful in my case was having shadowing sessions with my peers outside of the US, or even my peers in Brazil. They were having more interactions with engineering teams outside. So I wanted to get more of those conversations going into my head for me to start, ingesting more content in English, more business content and conversations around that. So I did it, and it was very beneficial. So I put in a lot of efforts on my English, and 3 years after, I had a completely different English level, to a point where I could perform a good interview. I could make myself clear on my ideas and how I would solve a given problem. Something along those lines, right? So English was the very first thing that came up out of that assessment, and I worked pretty hard on that one, right? The second thing that I would say is you gotta be very conscious about what you are really good at, right? Because in the US, the market is very segmented. So it means that if you are good on something, there are a huge chance for you to get a role related to those skills that you are really good at, right? Rather than being a more generalistic professional, you should be focusing on a more specialized set of skills, because the chances for you to differentiate yourself among the candidates the company has in pipe is much bigger if you do that, right? So try to assess the areas of your profile, the projects you've been delivering, the impact that it was able to generate in the past. Take all that in and focus your search and your preparation, your resume, everything that you're gonna do should be focused on those really good aspects that you have in your profile. Because I'll tell you this, even if you do amazingly good in a given interview outside of the Brazil or whatever country you might be listening this from, even if you do really great in an interview here in the US, for instance, you gotta be sure that there's a lot of very nice candidates that did good too. So if you deliver a good experience in terms, hey, I'm really good at this, you are gonna be able to at least call the attention of the recruiter as a good technician or as a good specialist for a given aspect that you're being interviewing for. And also this is gonna help you on mapping opportunities too, because if you go to the portal websites, the HR websites that these companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, Salesforce, all those big techs out there, there's a universe of opportunities, right? They go from developers, data analysts, all the way up to VP of engineering or VP of HR. So you gotta be, if you have this mapping ready with you about where your strengths are, this is gonna help you to map out the best suitable opportunities to you as well, right? So that's something that I did a lot too, and helped me a lot, because I was very, very accurate on my search. And when I was, called up for a given interview process, my chances to do good on those interviews, they increased considerably and work it out great, right? So you should be looking into that too. The other thing that I would call out is the persistence, right? It's very likely that you're gonna receive a lot of no's, a lot of denials, because and the reasons, but they might vary a lot, from the company not being willing to pay for your relocation, for instance, all the way up to just having a better candidate that sits in the US already. It's much simpler for them, much easier for them to get that candidate onboarded than bringing somebody else from another country which has immigration aspects tied to it. And so be persistent, right? It's gonna happen. If this is something that you really, really wanted, and if you are working and putting the effort on to make this happen, it will eventually happen, right? Sometimes it doesn't happen at the moment that you are looking at. Sometimes it doesn't happen into the company that you initially thought you would be able to get in. Sometimes it doesn't happen to a specific role that we were looking at, but it will happen, because those types of efforts always pay off, right? And especially if you are on IT whatever spectrum of IT market you might be in at this point in time, a developer or architect or whatever, there will be the need for professionals like yourself. So just put in the effort, be persistent, map out the opportunities properly, work on your English, and eventually this is gonna happen. This is critical. US has a much bigger demand than the number of professionals they might be hiring from, and so eventually it will happen. But you gotta be persistent, because a lot of no's are gonna be coming to your way, and that's normal, right? So it's a universe of circumstances that need to be lined up for a move like this to be able to happen. In my case, I did easily over 10 interview process. I was approved in most of them, but when it comes to receiving an offer and making that happen, in fact, it's a totally different conversation, budget and everything. And so out of 10 process that I did, one worked it out, and I'm here for now almost 6 years. And so just be persistent, right? Other thing that I used to do a lot and worked fine for me was asking for informational conversations. In my case, it was easier because I was within the company already, and at the time I was working for Microsoft, and Microsoft has this culture of fostering those international movements, right? So it was easier for me when I saw something that I felt that was a good fit for my profile. It was easier for me to kind of go out and say, hey, X, can we have a conversation about this position that you have on your team? I would like to introduce myself and to show you a little bit about my experience. And it was usually like 15, 20, 30 minutes conversation, no more than that. It's very, very informational conversation, but it shows you, and it shows the hire manager, the person hiring people, that first, you are proactive on your goals. Second, that you have a good experience and you can generate the impact they're looking at. You get to understand how the eventual boss works, so you can interview him too. You might be aware about the profile he or she is looking at, and then you can prepare accordingly if you get invited to the interview process. So a lot of positives in that approach, and I did that a lot. And if you have the possibility of asking for those informational conversations, I strongly recommend you doing so, because it's very accurate, and the results are usually very nice, because at least you're gonna get into the interview loop, which is the very first step for you to be able to do that, right? To accomplish your goal. And last but not least, it's all about relationships. So if you have the chance to expand your network of people, of relationships, right? You should be focusing on that too, because at the end of the day, it's people hiring people, right? We are all under a given company that has its own processes and such, but at the end of the day, it is people talking to people and getting to know people and recommending people. And there's a huge chance of success when you have a good recommendation coming out to you. And so I strongly recommend going to events, doing stretch work. I know it might be tiring. Sometimes you are very tired, but I did that a lot. For instance, I used to be part of open source projects that didn't have anything to do with the areas that I was working for or the projects I was working for, but I wanted to be known by people that I identify as being a key stakeholder for eventual move in the future, right? So I did a lot of those hackathons. I did a lot of shadowing. I did a lot of stretch work with areas that not necessarily had anything to do with my current team or the projects that we supposed to be involved in. So that helps a lot, right? And what ended up happening, just to finish this up, what ended up happening on my case was I got invited to be joining a loop of interviews for a cloud solution architect role in the education industry here in the US. And the person that recommended me to this interview loop was a person that was holding a hackathon for education in the past. I volunteered myself to be one of the facilitators in the hackathon. I spent an entire weekend doing that. You know, it was entirely proactive work. And when the opportunity appeared in his team, he invited me to join the interview loop. He recommended me to the hiring manager here in the US. I went through the interview loop, which was very heavy, and I got in. And in November, I think it was November of 2017, I got into the interview loop, and in in December 2017, I received a offer letter from Microsoft here in the US, inviting me to join the education team up here, with the relocation package included and so on. So that's it. I just wanted to share some of those insights that worked out greatly for me when I decided that moving to another country was something that I wanted to do. There are another aspects that I didn't touch here, which are more on the personal side of the house, but I will let this one to another video in the future, because I wanted to focus more on the professional aspects that you should be looking at. And let me know if this makes sense or not in the comments. If you want to hit my website as well, fabriciosanchez.com, go there and lay your comment there. I'll be happy to hear your thoughts on that one. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for being here. If you didn't do that yet, hit the subscribe button to get updated into what's happening in this channel. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.